What's up, guys? This is Luke from Sober from Despair, and what I want to talk today about is justification, I guess, in an addict's mind. Recently in a group that I had, there's some information of somebody that relapsed, and didn't relapse on their drug of choice. They relapsed on alcohol, which wasn't a drug of their choice, and eventually that alcohol, after just a few weeks, took them back down the road to their drug of choice, which was heroin. And now they're struggling really hard with trying to get back on the sober wagon and going through the withdrawals and everything in a matter of a few weeks. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions going on, like, in today's society about alcohol being okay, or I live in Colorado and now weed's like the new norm. And being an addict, it's really hard to fully realize sometimes that addiction's a disease and it starts in your head, and all these drugs affect the same part of your head. It affects the limbic system, and it overrides the prefrontal cortex in your brain. Any drug that you use does this, and that's what causes the disease of addiction, because you're not able to use your prefrontal cortex anymore, which is your decision-making area. So you're like strung out and addicted and making decisions from literally your survival mechanism inside your brain, like a really old ancient part of your brain that is kind of involuntary. It's like fight or flight. I've talked about this in previous blogs, and there's a good video you should watch if you don't believe me or want to get more information on it, and that's called Pleasures Unwoven. Really good DVD talking about addiction and talking about how it actually affects your brain and stuff. But anyways, it seems like a lot of people, I mean, I've even been to an AA meeting before where I got kicked out for saying I was a drug addict. They said that they couldn't help me because they don't know anything about drugs. They're alcoholics. We're alcoholics, we can't help you, is what it was coming across as. And if you believe that alcohol or any drug is different from another drug, you're already setting yourself up in a relapse. You're in relapse mode. If I were to think right now, I'd be able to drink because I didn't really have a problem that much with drinking, but my problem was methadone, opiates, and pot. If I set myself up to believe that that was okay, that's gonna go back into that area of my brain again and fuck shit up all over again. So then I have no judgment when it comes to the opiates later or the weed later. And even still, if I just stuck with alcohol, I mean, there's AA is like the common thing that everybody talks about when referring to getting help, getting treatment. So obviously alcohol is pretty shitty drug to be using anyways. I don't know, it's just something that crossed my mind. I remember when I was in my first intensive outpatient treatment a few years ago, like 3 years ago now. I ended up dropping out after my 21st birthday because I wanted to drink again. Sure enough, that drinking led me back down the road to methadone, way worse than I was before, and I ended up having to go to rehab 9 months later, and then now I'm at intensive outpatient treatment again right now. So whatever drug is your drug of choice, it's easier to look at it as like I'm addicted to all drugs. Like for me, I would not be able to go out and use meth or use coke or crack or something like that just because I was addicted to methadone. That wasn't my drug of choice. I am now safely responsible to use meth or something like that. That's crazy thinking. I remember even seeing, like, on a addiction documentary, they were talking about High Times magazine and how, like, in the 1960s there's an article in High Times magazine that said that coke was about as addictive as potato chips. And way back in the day, you could buy laudanum over the counter. You could buy benzos, all sorts of stuff without a prescription. You could buy alcohol, which you could still do today. But you could buy all these different drugs, and that was socially acceptable. Well, today, alcohol is still very socially acceptable. It probably always will be. Pot's starting to become really socially acceptable, especially in my neck of the woods in Colorado. And I don't know, I think it's still safe to say that all of society doesn't know everything that there is to know about addiction yet. And so just because that's the social norm doesn't mean that it is acceptable. I know everybody does it, and it is a lot of fun. It's a fuckload of fun. Love drinking. Love that shit. I love smoking weed. I love all of that shit. But that's the reason I can't do it, because I'm an addict. Not only do I love it, but I have the disease of addiction. My brain's all fucked up. So if you are in a place where you're thinking like drinking's okay to do, but you don't do the coke or stuff anymore, that's crazy thinking. I was actually working with a girl recently that she was telling me her life story, and she said that she used to be addicted to coke, and she used to do heroin and speed and all sorts of stuff. She was telling me that she has kids now, and so with her kids it kind of got her sober, but she still goes out and drinks all the time. And we were at work, and it was kind of a long day at work, and she was talking about, oh, I'm gonna get drunk tonight. I'm like, why? She's like, well, I'm like a single mom, I have all these problems going on, and drinking is just, it's my way to deal with it. It's not like I'm doing all the other drugs. And I didn't say anything because I'm not that type of person. I mean, I have my blog to say whatever's on my mind. But with her, I think that's crazy, you know? Like, okay, even if you did never go back to coke or something, or go back to the speed or the heroin again, you're still drinking. And you've already had problems with drugs before. Drugs all do the same shit to your brain. So how is drinking okay? There's like a disconnect right there. I don't know, recently I got into like even a diet change, and I've been doing it for a few months. There's a great book by Mark Hyman called The Ultra Mind Solution. It talks about just changing your whole diet to help with like ADD and stuff like that. And my reasoning for doing that was I was on ADD medicine, and that shit does the same stuff to my brain that all the other drugs did. I mean, it's Adderall that I was on. So I felt like, I literally felt addicted to it. I felt like I wouldn't be able to do my day. I wouldn't be able to focus. I wouldn't be able to concentrate. I wouldn't be able to do all this shit without that ADD medicine. It kind of put me in the zone. And that was my thinking with it, and it did help. It helped for a long time. And it would still help if I took it. But to me, I became dependent on it, and it almost became an addiction for me, and I don't want that. So now I'm trying to replace foods and have healthy living, and those almost give you like a natural high. Like foods can give you a natural high, exercise, meditation, reading, being outside. I don't know if you can see this, but I got sunburn really bad right there from being outside, shooting, doing stuff like that, and that gives me my natural high now, and that also helps me with my focus. And my ADD medicine isn't necessarily necessary anymore. It's not a necessity. So whatever the case may be, I mean, there are natural ways to get these highs. I mean, the highs aren't near as good as methadone or anything, but I mean, I'm still going through some crazy shit with my family, still going through looking for jobs. Like, my whole world kind of is upside down right now. But with all the bad, like, I feel really good. And the reason that is because I'm doing all these things that I just mentioned, like exercising, eating healthily, drinking kombucha tea even, reading on the reg, trying to exercise my brain, watching funny shit on TV and trying to have a good time, even when I'm talking in group or something. Like, my number one thing is to try to be positive. Even when I talk about really negative shit, like, I'll definitely feel the negative shit, and I'm doing a lot better job of like actually processing negative feelings. But I'm still really happy inside when I'm talking about this stuff, and it's because of all the other shit that I'm doing, the natural highs that I'm getting out of life right now. So there are safe alternatives, and those alternatives make you feel really good, and they make you live longer, so it's pretty badass. I don't know, it's just something that struck my mind, and so I wanted to talk about it. Kind of rambling because I haven't done a video blog in a long time, but there it is. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Alright, thanks for coming. Peace out.